Well, the horror of it all is almost unmentionable, so those of you with weak stomachs or delicate sensitivities might want to turn down the volume for this because of the heinous hate crime that was committed over the weekend. Saturday Night Live did a sketch about Irish flight attendants and the Times of Ireland and the Irish airline Aer Lingus, upon which it was based, are outraged. It's been called a hate crime, and so on and so on and so on. Hi, everybody. I'm Bill Whittle here with Steve Green and Scott Ott, and this is your right angle against this horrific incident of social intolerance that happened, as I say, just over the weekend. So imagine our shock here, guys. Saturday Night Live does a sketch about an Irish airline, and one of the jokes is there's a dog on the runway and we can't take off because he's got the sad eyes of Oscar Wilde. Another joke is dinner today will be potatoes, new potatoes, and salmon. Sorry, we didn't mean to say salmon. We meant to say potatoes. Okay, so you can see how people will be completely traumatized about this. Now, this is not what I want to talk about. It's just a launching pad for what I want to talk about. Because I used to be in a position, let's start with you, Steve. Sure. I used to be in a position where I thought we had to fight back against this kind of politically correct death spiral, because that's what it is. Everybody is finding more and more and more things to be offended about. And I used to say, this is crazy, let's stop it. Now I'm saying, no, let's make this go to its logical conclusion as quickly as possible. What happens now to the left? If Saturday Night Live is not allowed to make fun of the Irish, they're not allowed to make fun of anybody. Has the left gotten themselves in the situation where Chris Rock, who's a pretty liberal guy, said, I can't go do college campuses anymore. I try to make a joke and people get immediately offended. Do you think we should be fighting this death spiral, or do you think we should just sit back and pop a cold one and put our feet up and just watch it with a great deal of joy and fervor?
Let it burn, right?
Let it burn, baby. Yeah.
There's a lot of joy to be found in that. A lot of schadenfreude, too, I guess. Although, I'd just like to say that I guess I would never stereotype the Irish because I don't want some drunken brawler to knock my teeth out.
No. Probably going after your Lucky Charms.
That aside.
They always are.
You know, it's fascinating. Back when there were legal straitjackets on people based on their race or whatever, they were made fun of in a cruel way that we would find intolerable today, and we should find intolerable today. And there was a brief period, sort of a golden age, I guess from the late '60s to maybe the mid '90s.
Yeah.
30 glorious years when the legal straitjackets have been removed and the cultural straitjackets were removed too. We could laugh at ourselves. We could laugh at each other. And we did just that. It was a time, I guess the thing to say is a time of racial healing that this country so desperately needed. And we need it again. We've spent the last 20 years putting ourselves in a new cultural straitjacket where everybody is afraid to say anything for a fear of offending someone, anyone. And we've reached a point where the law has become so convoluted that the only thing that is tolerated is conformity, where the safest thing to say is now the only thing you can say without without getting dragged over the coals. And that's not what it's supposed to be about. So I want to fight it, Bill. I really do, but I don't know that there is a way to fight it. So yeah, let's pop a cold one together, see what happens.
Don't get me wrong. What I'm saying is the way to fight it is to accelerate it. I'm not saying we stop fighting it. I'm saying
I
we
misunderstood.
hasten. We hasten its demise.
In that case, Bill, yes, I'm not reluctantly joining you, having misunderstood what you said. Now that I understand what you said, I am hopping on board with enthusiasm and a flask and a bunch of half Jewish jokes. I'm half Jewish and all the rest. And yeah, we're gonna tear the roof off this sucker.
Scotty, I'm serious about this now. I'd like to get your opinion on where this trajectory goes, because as Steve said, there was a period, and I've said a few times before on the show, to me it's most most clear when you watch the Dean Martin comedy roasts from the
those were
70s,
great.
mostly from the 70s, where these people who obviously love each other, unlike the modern version that they did on Comedy Central where they haven't met each other. These
Yeah.
people are old friends, and they're making jokes about them being black and being Irish and being Jewish and all the rest of it. There was a time that was a time of actual healing, because that's what humor does. Is you by laughing at it, you're taking the power away from it. Now, we have gone down a different road, and it's an ugly road. But if you look at the trajectory from the Dean Martin roast to today, where do you think this goes 10 years from now, 20 years from now? I think it's a death spiral that ends up like the house at the end of Poltergeist. It just basically collapses in on itself and then just disappears. What do you think?
Before you mentioned that you wanted to do this as a topic for a show, I had actually seen that sketch. I'll just watch on YouTube. They just show the sketch. You can see all the sketches from the previous week's Saturday Night Live. So I was watching that sketch, and really the whole reason for the sketch was just to make an off-color remark related to the name of the airline. But it was actually a fascinating.
It's like you're 12 sometimes.
That's right. It was a fascinating sketch because the passengers on the airplane, who were, for the most part supposed to be playing Irish people, were like completely not impressed or not going along with these goofy airline stewardesses who were making all these stereotypical Irish remarks. And the people on the airplane were like, hey, are we going to take off on time? I mean, is there any hope that I'm going to get to New York and to make my connecting flight or whatever? So I actually thought that overall it wasn't a bad sketch. But what stunned me was that, holy cow, now the shoe's on the other foot, isn't it? Because Saturday Night Live is largely made up of liberal entertainers, and now they're getting hassled by people for, being culturally inappropriate or making fun of somebody's race. I thought it was funny, and frankly, I think we could do with more of that in an atmosphere where we all don't take ourselves seriously. I think there is a legitimate grounds. If I were at the PR department at the Irish airline, I'd probably be gone, you know what, let's just play this. Let's just not say anything. But I could see why they would be upset because they're making that airline look silly. But I don't think it's a bad thing to see, first of all, Saturday Night Live doing some humor that doesn't involve Donald Trump. And secondly, for making light of differences among people. And actually, they had some subtlety in it, too, where they were basically saying, okay, look, we know we're doing this. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge, I want to see more of this. And I don't think it's a sign of the decay of culture that it's happening. I think it may be the sign of the decay of culture that there are a handful of people who feel like they have to protest it.
Mm-hmm. Well, apparently, one of the reasons that people were upset about it in the Irish Times and the airline, a few other people in Ireland and so on, was because they were doing accents and poor accents, which I find a bit of a conundrum, because the Irish, the thing about them that I always like the best, you see, is their sense of humor, their ability to laugh at themselves. I always found that quite a bit amusing. You look at the symbol for the Notre Dame Fighting Irish, there's just a wee little leprechaun who's drunk off his ass, and he's got his little fists up, and he's ready to pop one right on your chin. And that was what I admire about the Irish, the Fighting Irish. I admire the Notre Dame leprechaun who strikes me as extremely drunk, obviously belligerent, and just ready to start a fight with anybody. This is how you eliminate racial and national prejudices. You simply embrace them. You laugh at them like everybody else. You take them to its logical extreme. And I'm not joking about this now with the Fighting Irish and with Irish people in America in general. Everybody's seen those signs that say Irish need not apply. They were despised. They were a despised immigrant group in this country. But now we have St. Patrick's Day, we have green beer, we have the whole river of Chicago turns green, everybody's Irish on the 17th of March. They owned it. They owned it. And because they didn't take it so seriously, because they laughed at it, they disarmed it. They just simply took away all its power. And it's a little annoying to see some Irish people, I don't think very many of them, but a couple people getting up on their hind legs talking about how offensive all of this is. Welcome to our world. Welcome to the world of straight white males, conservatives in America. But I wasn't kidding about the trajectory. One by one, more and more people are going to continue the virtue parade and this death spiral of ever increasing sensitivity to ever louder cries of offense from ever smaller and shriller groups of people is going to end up with the people who cherish free speech the most, which would be your entertainment people, your writers, your actors, your performances, what they do. Speech is their job. That's what they do. It might finally dawn on them that they've gone too far. I suspect not. You know, I think we ought to just throw them all into the bog, out back of the restaurant. They're doomed. I know they're doomed. We all know they're doomed. And anybody who's on the fence on this one, come on over to the side of the people who don't just have a hissy fit over everything, okay? You know, we can laugh at ourselves. We can laugh at other people. We don't mean anything by it. And if somebody's really genuinely nasty, then we leave that idiot alone. It's not so hard to figure out. That'll do it for your right angle on this wee little Monday. I actually could tell a joke with an Irish accent, but I can't improvise so well. I got a great joke about an Irish priest.
I was so hoping you were going to tell that joke.
I love that joke.
I was thinking about it as soon as you went into the Irish accent.
I'll do it. I'll do it.
Great
Screw
out.
it. We're going live.
That's right.
It's my favorite Irish joke. I've completely lost control of this episode.
Yeah, that's all right.
And I love Irish jokes. So there's this new Irish priest, and he's just gotten a hold of a very distant parish way out in the country. The old priest who'd been there for 70 years has died, and this is his first address to the congregation, and he's quite disturbed. He's quite angry, and quite alarmed. And he basically turns to the congregation, this young priest. He says, "Now, beloved, I've heard it in such a way that I believe it, that a few members of this congregation have said that they believe in ghosts. That's not biblical, beloved. It's not the Bible. It's superstition. How many of you out there believe in ghosts?" And, 7 or 8 or 10 people in this little crowd raise their hand. And he's completely mortified. He says, "This is shocking to me in this day and age. I've also heard in such a way that some people actually believe that you've seen a ghost. How many of you believe that you've seen a ghost in real life?" And 5 or 6 people raise their hands, and he's even more mortified. And then he gets quite quiet. He says, "It pains me to have to say this, but there's a rumor in the village that some of you out there claim to have actually had sex with a ghost. Raise your hand if you actually believe you've had sex with a ghost." And this little old man in the back raises his hand kind of shyly, and he says, "Mr. O'Flanagan, you can't be serious. You can't be telling me that you had sex with a ghost." And the man goes, "Oh, begging your pardon, Father. I thought you said goat."
For the record, that's not the Irish joke I thought you were going to tell.
I love that joke.
That's a great
I love it.
joke.
And with that, the letters will begin and the memberships will begin to disintegrate. But I don't care. It's a lovely joke, and
We apologize for not
and I'm sticking to it. Were you thinking about the parking joke?
Yes.
We'll solve it later.
We'll do that on
well,
another
I'm not
episode.
going into that one. I'm tempted. No, we'll save that for next time. We'll save that for the inevitable backlash.
That's right.
All right, that'll do it for your right angle on being overly sensitive in this day and age. If you were offended by this in any way, congratulations. That was my sincere intent, and I'm glad I was able to achieve it. We'll see you next week on Right Angle.